Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Bonus Point Podcast Super Rugby Series. My name is TJ Olsen, joined by Tavita Halafia and James Tesserero. And we are thrilled to have all forms of rugby back in the Trans-Tasman, from Super Rugby all the way down to the grassroots in both New Zealand and Australia. Before we get stuck in, I do want to touch on the grassroots rugby a little bit, because both Souths and Brothers, the two teams that Huller and I support, didn't come away with wins in week one. So we were both just giving each other crap about how much scores.
Because James, they didn't just win.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. So James, can you share how Randwick did in Colts and grades? Because I hear it was a pretty good weekend for your club.
It was a good weekend. The Wicks got up in all grades and had some very big wins in first grade. They put up about 55 points. And then first Colts won 97-7.
That is horrendous.
That is amazing.
That's so good.
How many Kiwi players do you have in your team?
How many what, sorry?
How many Kiwi players do you have in your team?
We've got one who's very good.
Yeah.
One's all you need. One's all you need. Well, I'll be throwing up the W's, up the Wicks. There we go. So let's kick off the show, and we'll talk about Super Rugby Aotearoa, because they had their first ever Golden Point match in this competition, and then the second Golden Point match the following night. So a lot of people are loving these action-packed games. The All Black selectors aren't loving it because they put a lot of miles on some of their star players. We've now got 5 big names on the injured list. You've got Sam Cane, who underwent surgery on his pec recently. Artie Savia suffered I believe it could be a season-ending MCL injury. Plus Joe Moody and Jack Goodhue and a few other people are all out for at least a game. So I think it's a bit too early to talk about how this will impact the All Black squad. But Hala, I did want to come to you with a question. Do you believe that the fact that the ABs have so many players injured or playing overseas, do you think this has a potential to motivate younger players to try and compete for an AB spot if they weren't already motivated?
I don't think it's any extra motivation. I mean, anyone that plays in that competition want an All Blacks jersey. So if anything, it's just helped instead of maybe the 6th string guys are now looking that it's quite possible that they could now, be coming up into the ranks, especially in the prop position. I think, like we spoke about last week, I think the prop position's really up for grabs at the moment. But do you mean anyone that plays in Super Rugby Aotearoa or the Australian Super Rugby AU, they want the Wallabies or All Blacks jerseys. Nothing changes. If anything, the biggest difference is now whoever that they face may have to change their game plan a little bit because they may not have certain players there. Or not, I don't know. No, the answer is no. No, you want to play for the All Blacks. That's what happens. They're just too deep at the moment. So, look, you could be playing first grade right now, club weekend, and you're like, whoa, could make my All Blacks debut in a couple of weeks.
Well, we could see a similar situation to the Beaver, who's out whitebait fishing, and then you get a call to come play for the World Cup and bring it there. So yeah, I mean it's definitely possible.
With the winning goal.
Yeah, with the winning goal. That's why he's my favorite player. But yeah, we'll chat about our first game. So that was the Chiefs versus the Highlanders. Very happy, obviously, about that game. They went into battle without Sam Cane, though, so that was a bit of a different way to attack. But although the Chiefs got the W, they suffered a lot of penalties at the hands of Ben O'Keefe, and a lot of them were for advancing after a kick for territory. So there has been a lot of chatter about the continuity of the game and how some of these calls are continuing to disrupt the game and asking, is this really impeding the game? I think a big one is the kick off the defensive line for territory. But on one hand, you've got a lot of people saying it's a slight movement after the kick. It's not really impacting the game whatsoever, where others are saying players who are, even if it's a slight advance and they get a 5-meter advantage, that makes a big difference, a massive impact to the potential of the counter-attack and the quality of it. So the Mitch Brown penalty was a clear one for me. He was warned and he adjusted, I think, after a couple of times and seemed to go again. Seemed to not go again during the game. But James, I want to get your opinion on this because I want to see how you feel. So the referees obviously have the obligation to referee to the letter of the law, but a lot of people are saying if it comes to the continuity or the entertainment factor for the fans, they should be more lenient. So do you think the refs should be more lenient when it comes to players advancing, or do you think they need to draw a hard line in the sand and say this is what the law is. I don't care about continuity. I don't care about entertainment. We need to live by the letter of the law.
Yeah. I think almost every referee that kind of goes out there whistling a match is not looking to blow his whistle and stop the game more than they need to. They're looking for materiality, and if a infringement has had a material effect on the game. And I think the offside from the kick is an area where anyone who is in front of the kick, if the ball is in play for a counter attack, anyone who is in front of the kicker who is advancing is having an effect on the decisions the counter attack makes.
Right.
So it's a very 360-degree, three-dimensional kind of aspect of our game, and whether somebody is in front of a kicker or not changes the options taken and the picture seen by the counter attack. So, and the players at this level, they know if they're in front of the kicker or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of a case of kind of trying to gain a small edge or cut a corner. And I think the referees are right to have zero tolerance on it.
100%.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, because like it's not something that these players don't know the rules. They don't know the legality around it. They know these laws and they know what they need to do. So whether it's trying to cut a corner, as you said, it's a weird sacrifice to try and make. But Hulla, I hear a lot of yeses in the background, and you agreeing with a lot of things that James is saying. Do you agree with that 100%? Yeah,
man, 100%. He said it perfectly. I think too, something like that is such a basic thing. Just don't move. Just don't move.
Yeah.
And if you're too fit and you want to keep moving, well, then good for you, mate. Stand still. This wasn't happening 20 years ago. As soon as that boy, let's go.
Yeah.
Get by me. I'm not moving.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely something that I believe Ben O'Keefe is copying a lot of slack for, not slack, a lot of flack for it, and not getting the correct, I guess, credit for what he's trying to do. He's trying to abide by the letter of the law, make sure the game is played correctly. But I want to move to talk about a player that has been back in the fold now for a little bit, and that's Josh Ioane. He earned his jersey back coming off the bench for this game. Hulla, we know that this one Test All Blacks player was projected to be the next great 10. He's been dealing with a few injuries and a lot of other things during his career. But what do you think of his performance in the second half? And I'll come to you with a second question after you give your opinion.
Yeah, I think he played well. He doesn't lack confidence, which is very Richie Mo'unga-esque. Really gives it a whole shot. I think anyone coming back from injury, especially when you've got pretty much the weight of New Zealand on you, as to be this, the next big thing, that plays to you mentally. And I think definitely he's still young in regards to how he makes his decision making. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's not. Sometimes he seems calm, sometimes and resilient. Other times he seems he's rushing. I think it's just more or less give him more time. Obviously he's made some indiscretions, that were definitely punished. But I think all in all, he's definitely got a long way to go. But I fully back him to be a mainstay in the All Blacks 10 jersey moving forward.
So this is the question I want to ask you as well. And James, you can jump on this if you want as well. With him now back in the fold, Tony Brown obviously will look to utilize him. But I believe Mitch Hunt, he's been doing quite a good job at number 10. So do you believe that he should be coming off the bench, him being Josh Ioane, and then keeping Mitch in that number 10 jersey? Or should we see something like we push Mitch Hunt back to 15 and then we push Josh in that 10 jersey?
I think Mitch Hunt's been performing really well. So, if you're going to go by how he's been playing, I'd keep him there for the time being. But they've got to make some tough decisions when it's coming into finals. So I think with Fakatava out and Aaron Smith taking the helm at 9, and you don't have as much of an experienced 9 coming to replace Aaron Smith, if he does it all, and I can't see that happening. Aaron Smith is a really 70, 80-minute player. Whatever that best combo is what they're going to go with. And at the moment, my hat goes to Hunt starting the game strong, and then bring Ioane on to finish and really put the knife through the chest for their oppositions to bring home the game. Yeah.
James, do you have anything to add to that?
Mate, as always, I'll defer to your knowledge of the Kiwi game. All right. As a coach, I don't mind finding room for 2 10s in the same back line.
Mhm.
But it depends who you're displacing and what you're trying to do out of your gameplay. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, well,
I
let's
think
talk about.
I think Mitch Hunt plays a more direct game than Josh Ioane.
Mhm.
So I really like that, and I like how he presses forward a lot. But I like that he does hang at times, and I think his kicking is a little bit more accurate
Yeah,
than Ioane. And Highlanders need all the help they can get right now if they're really trying to make some type of run into finals.
yeah, I think so too. I think Mitch Hunt and Damien McKenzie, they both had pretty off nights when it came to the kicking during this game. So I don't think we should hold that against them because, like you said, that Mitch Hunt has had an excellent kicking record up until this
that
game.
was a boring game.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the other Golden Point match, and that was between the Crusaders and the Hurricanes. So the Crusaders came away with the victory in this matchup, but it was another week where the Crusaders were starting to look as mortal as opposed to just like they were looking human. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. One thing we see quite evidently in Super Rugby AU is the caliber and the distance between the super teams. So you've obviously got the Reds and then you've got the Brumbies, and then there's a massive gap in between that. So although a lot of people still believe the Crusaders are clear favorites, they're obviously quite ahead on the leaderboard. The past 2 weeks, the competition has started to creep closer and closer, especially with the Hurricanes on nipping at their heels. It's something where we're starting to see the gap come a little bit closer. So now the Crusaders, I want to see where they go because you've obviously got a potential final against a team like the Blues or the Chiefs or some other team if they can get a couple of wins. So, James, with 2 pretty average weeks, and you've obviously got guys like Moody, Goodhue on the injured list, are the other super teams in Super Rugby Aotearoa showing the Crusaders that the gap isn't so big in this competition like a lot of people think?
I think so. I think the Aotearoa competition, the teams are less separated than they are in Australia, and the Super Rugby AU really has 2 very good sides, and then a couple of kind of Super Rugby standard, debatable, not Super Rugby standard teams. I think the Kiwi model of centralising contracts and making sure that there isn't a kind of bottleneck of halfbacks in a certain position in a certain club. There's not a bottleneck of hookers in a certain province. Making sure that the talent is somewhat distributed, so that in theory your best 5 tight head props are all starting in a different province. That's the Kiwi model, and that's we're seeing at the moment the Australian Super Rugby sides are kind of bickering a little bit about how contracting's done and the role of Rugby Australia. So I think the Kiwi model leads to a system where the competition should be somewhat even. And then we've also got, these are kind of dog days of the competition. And I think the Crusaders have dropped a little bit of focus. And I think they've got a long, long history of switching that back on when finals footy comes around. And I think that they'll be just fine.
Yeah.
It's annoying too that they will be. We all know they will be.
Yeah.
And they're still winning these games when they play average, and that's so to win by
that's the thing.
Win.
That's the thing, is a lot of people say, well, it's only 3 points, how big of a margin it is, but you're sitting there going, it's still pretty big because it's the Crusaders. So yeah, I don't know. Hello, what have you got to add to that?
Yeah, man, I think they're just having a couple of weeks off. Too many beers during the week. Some carver sessions on a Thursday night, Friday night. That's all that's happened. And there's nothing. We can say whatever we wish to happen. It's not. It's the Crusaders. All it takes is one training session. They all click. It doesn't matter the good who moody going. It's just going to be like, all right, boys, let's go. Yeah. And then they're going to go put 50 stacks on someone. Like that's who they are. But I like what James was saying though about the centralized, how they New Zealand rugby union allocate too. I think that's definitely a big say, and that's what we're seeing with these last 2 weeks with the Crusaders. These other teams they're clicking, putting the pressure on, because they've got equal distribution ish of their players, which I think helps, and that's why their competition is so strong. Because you're gonna have you're going to have, someone like Aaron Smith at your 9, and then Fakatava's coming up, who literally had to work his way into the team. And then, you've got I'm trying to think now, Damien McKenzie at fullback, who's helping out, whoever's coming through. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's beautiful across the board. Having said that, though, I hope the Crusaders do not win the competition. Aotearoa, I really hope that they don't win the Trans-Tasman, because I'm sick of seeing them win.
I think a lot of people are, except Crusaders fans, but they do go up against the Chiefs this week. I will be watching that whole game instead of sleeping and avoiding the score. So
don't watch it, Braz. They're going to put 50 on the Chiefs. Like, for what
none of that. Stop that.
Braz, that was the most boring game of rugby I've seen. And we watched all club rugby on the weekend, and that was way more exciting than what we watched.
Hey, you can't take the optimist out of the optimist body. But let's talk about the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes, they obviously suffered a pretty close loss, but I think they have a lot to be excited about for their young talent. We've seen over the years the Hurricanes struggle to try and find a suitable replacement once Beauden Barrett left from the Hurricanes and he went to the Blues. And they had Jackson Garden-Bachop, who started a lot of their matches in the past couple of seasons, and he did a pretty good job. But in this match, we saw a 19-year-old Ruben Love. He made his Super Rugby debut, and he looked to make a pretty good impact early on. So I really enjoyed his straight away. He was making an impact. He was diving on balls. He was punching through the line. He looked amazing to me. Who looks like a better fit for the Hurricanes team, Hulla? Do you think it's Love or Garden-Bachop?
Oh, dude, I mean, that's just an unfair question, I think. Ruben Love's that fresh kid out of high school, killed it. And he's definitely a step above everyone at his level, his age group. And he's made for Super Rugby. I think one thing we can definitely give New Zealand credit for is they know how to bring their young kids through and really bleed them properly. And we're seeing that right now with Ruben Love. I feel for Garden-Bachop, I think he's done the hard yards. He's gone from team to team and found his mainstay there at the Canes. And I thought he did really well. There's nothing that he's doing that I think warrants any reason for him not to be there. I just think that, someone like Ruben Love has come through and the system's going to treat him really well. And he's definitely got the potential. But we've seen lots of potential. Josh, you won it, like we mentioned earlier. So it's just going to be interesting to see him in the Canes development. I think what Ruben Love has going for him is his connection to his center pairing and how he plays. That's a big one for me. Opposed to Garden-Bachop, who's sort of like a quintessential 10 that can work with anyone. Whereas, we saw on the weekend that 10, 12, 13 combination was probably the best that we've seen for the Canes this week against a very formidable Crusaders side too.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I want to see him do well, and you do make an excellent point. Is New Zealand knows how to bleed them in really well. So we'll see how he goes. He's got a couple more rounds left. Hopefully, if he can get a couple more caps under.
So he's a tall dude too. It was like 6'1" or 6'2". I'm like, what? Where are these 10s coming from in New Zealand? Bloody hell!
That's why when I saw Geordie Barrett, he made his debut at the number 10 jersey for the All Blacks. I was like, he's pretty freaking tall for a 10. That's awesome.
They're all second rowers.
Yeah.
What happened to this next generation? Whatever happened to the 5'8" fly half? Okay, we were gold back in the day.
So let's throw Brodie Retallick in there next. I like it. I like that idea. It'll be good stuff. He comes back here. So yeah, just chuck him in at 10. It'll be fine. He'll just start all the fights. It'll be good fun. But let's move on. We'll talk about Super Rugby AU next, and two very thrilling games as well. The Western Force ended up taking down the Rebels by just 1 point, and if that wasn't enough of a sting, Rebels superstar Reece Hodge is now out for 2 months with an injury. So I do want to come to both of you with this question, as there wasn't too much gameplay to unpack in this one. It was quite a boring match, but the Brumbies and Reds, they've both secured their spot in the finals. But someone has to play the Brumbies, or it won't be the Reds, but play the Brumbies in the semi-final. James, I'll come to you first, and then Hulla, you can answer afterwards. Who are you guys picking to take that third spot?
Mate, I think that Reece Hodge injury could have had a fair sway. I think they're quite dependent on – the Rebels are very dependent on Reece Hodge. in a couple of different areas, specifically kicking. And the Force, we said a couple of episodes ago that they'll get better as the competition goes along, and they'll knock off some teams. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Force finished the stronger. And I'd actually have to have a look at the draw, and it really depends on everyone's kind of run into that finals. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Force win a couple more games and get that third spot.
So we've got the Force playing the Waratahs next week, and the Rebels playing the Brumbies. So the Rebels are going to have a tough match against that Brumbies side. And then in the final game, the Force play the Reds, and then the Waratahs play the Rebels. So it's however you want to look at it. It might be an interesting run. So it might be really tight.
So it might come down to the Waratahs would need to roll the Rebels in the last match for the Force to get through. I think that's what it'll come down to. Yep. Interesting. Possible.
Possible. That's the one. Yeah, it's anything's possible in Super Rugby AU. It's an interesting one. Hulla, what do you reckon?
I want to sway the other way. I disagree. I think, look, my two big issues with Hodge is when it counts for the goals, he just seems to not be able to do it, and he's done it this year numerous times. And that's something that I think, that's something where I think kept him in the fold for the Wallabies as well. I just think from the back, I think I will give him credit. I love his chat at the back, especially in defense. I think he organizes the team really well. But I'd still say I think Rebels bring it home. Matt Tamul is starting to hit some really great form. I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. Taking control of the games. I don't know if I think Hodge gone is that big of a deal. Without trying to be mean, I just think, Bros, you had two chances, you couldn't click, and you know what I mean. If you're the go-to guy, be the go-to guy. Don't be the go-to guy, stall, and then misfire.
All right, can we just spend a moment feeling for Reece Hodge? In the last 6 months, he's missed three penalty goals to win Test matches, and a drop kick to win a Super Rugby match, and then he's blown his knee out.
Yeah. So, I know, 100%. But all I'm saying is he clearly didn't get over it mentally. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not being mean. This is a very real thing. This is a very real thing.
Hard truths from Allah.
Yeah, he's about those hard truths. But the one thing I did want to say is with that,
I'm just another keyboard warrior.
what we've done out of nowhere is we've created a possible cheeky punt. So I want to know if you guys want to chuck something on this.
I'll do it. I think Rebels make third spot for sure.
And I can just be absolutely wrong and back the Waratahs because I just want the Rebels to lose all their three games.
Could you imagine they just bang, 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 bang? I'd be like,
I'm all for losing it. If it's fitness, I'm down because I need it. If it's money, I'm kind of down. So I don't know.
Hey, I don't need the fitness. I need the money. I'm putting 50 behind.
You got 50.
I'm going $50. I'm very confident the Rebels take it. And they're the one team I've been harsh on all year. I genuinely think that they're going to do it.
Okay, well you can chuck 50 in. James and I will chuck 10, and then whoever wins, then we'll go. How does that sound? All right, cool, done deal. Oh man, I love that. That's awesome. All right, well let's talk about our last match because it was as thrilling as the two New Zealand games, and that was the Reds versus Brumbies. So the Reds end up winning this game by a very narrow margin, but with this win, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they secured a home final for the Super Rugby AU comp. So I do want to talk about the Brumbies first because they had Alan Aotearoa and Scott Seo return back into the fold. And not only do they bring almost 200 Super Rugby caps collectively, they also bring a ton of experience. So, James, when you looked at how this Brumbies team performed this week, did you see an improvement from this insertion of experience, or was it kind of the same?
No, I thought they're definitely better for having those guys back into the team. And the Reds, kind of got the ascendancy at different stages with their great scrum, but to a lesser extent than the previous Reds Brumbies match. So having those guys back in there stopped the bleeding a little bit and kept the Brumbies in the match. So hugely influential. Aotearoa's got to make some serious adjustments to his tackling technique, or he's going to be too expensive and too risky to carry in a test side for sure. He's just come back from a 3-week suspension, and he launched high and nearly took somebody's head off again. And just
it was beautiful to watch, though.
Mate, that's kind of outdated footy, and he's going to be too expensive. And a red card 20 minutes into a test match will probably lose you that test match.
Yeah, that's all right. They can just both go play for Samoa.
wait till they get transferred. Okay, there you go. But I want to end on this podcast with both your opinions on two players who will be in Wallabies camp together, but went head to head in this match, and that's the 10. So James O'Connor and Lolosio, they both showcased amazing talent, great rugby IQ on the field, but I want to see who you guys think had the better match. For me, I thought it was O'Connor. I think he had a great game. Hulla, I'll let you go first because I can already hear you chomping at the bit to talk about this. And then, James, you can finish off.
I'm just going to keep it short and simple. Make James O'Connor the Wallabies captain and the number 10. They're going to go a long way this year. I've said it. That's what it is. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You reckon captain as well?
Mate, I can't believe I'm saying this. JOC's game, if you would have told me when he first came in that this is the kid, I'd be like, okay, mate. And then everything that went down, I'd be like, okay, that's a good one. Bro, I'm convinced. I'm converted. JOC, I'm down with he. He's amazing. And here's the thing. Mentally making the best choices as captain and as a fly half. He knows when to kick, knows when to run, knows when to hold the line, knows when to just let the center. He had an inexperienced inside center. Yeah. And he was trusting him. Outside center, and he was trusting him. A young 19-year-old kid against the Brumbies. That goes to show he knows exactly what to say, how to help his team individually play, and how to keep himself composed. He single-handedly won that game for the Reds. He changed that second half. And I didn't want to say all that much. I'm down with him. I'm fully into it. He deserves the 10 spot for the Wallabies. Form 10 in the Aussie comp for sure.
I think you're going to make an OPP remix song now. You're down with JOC.
Yeah, you know.
It's gonna be a good one. I want to help you.
I hear that as
one.
for the final. I'll be pissed.
That'll be good. Yeah, James. What do you reckon? Do you reckon best 10 and captain, or just good 10?
Mate, I know it's a better podcast when we argue and disagree, but I have to say I agree with everything you just said as well. It's mate, if you were to say, I'm hearing noise that O'Connor will be considered as Wallaby captain, and if you'd said that 2 or 3 years ago, you would have been laughed at. And he's come from somebody who's considered a cancer on a team to being the best organizer, the best 10, and potentially kind of the example and your leader for your young players. So that'd be a remarkable turnaround. And his footy's been awesome.
Amazing,
yeah, that is true. It's
It's
weird, right? James O'Connor is the form guy. Like, that's just a weird statement. Like, what an upstanding captain he is for his state. Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't know. I really like him as the captain for the Queensland Reds. I don't know how he go as the Wallabies captain, because you've got so many, I guess, personalities, and you've got a lot of veterans in that team as well. How it will react. Obviously, he's a veteran Wallabies player, but how his type of captaincy, will it work for the Wallabies? It obviously works for the Reds, but will that Wallabies dynamic, I guess, accept it coming in? But yeah, I don't know. I'm all for it if it
Dave Rennie, man, that dude is a genius. So,
he definitely is.
You know, I mean, he's a little cuckoo. His coaching staff are all pretty cuckoo too. May as well have a cuckoo captain. That's all I'm saying. Especially when you chew up. Cuckoo.
Maybe we haven't had enough cuckoo in the Wallabies over the last few years.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think you need more. So yeah, we'll see. But it's
But how
called
good was it to see right back in the Reds though? Oh.
Mate, I was looking at that. It's been a long road for him injury wise, and I did want to touch on that as well because I think having that experience, but not having to worry about managing the game and that kind of thing, he's able to leave it to James O'Connor, and he can come in and just do his job, make a great impact. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how he goes in the next couple of games, and yeah, Reds are definite favourites now.
I do have a question for you two.
Mm-hmm.
Fraser McWright.
Oh, hold that.
Oh,
Okay. So I was going to surprise you guys with this segment, but you totally ruined it. So
I
it is called the bonus point for a reason. Okay. So I do want to talk about this because there's been a lot of chatter about the number 7 jersey for the Wallabies and involving the conversation with Hooper. So I guess a little bit of a backstory is this isn't something that has just come out of nowhere and people think that this could potentially happen. This has happened before with George Smith and David Pocock. So George Smith, he was a veteran. He was on that side, and then along came David Pocock in the middle of the 2009 Tri-Nation series. They pushed him into that starting 7, and basically the rest is history. George Smith went off to go play overseas. Pocock became the new 7. He obviously went to 8, but I want to get your guys' opinion on this because I certainly believe that this could potentially happen, is that Fraser McWright is now becoming the new number 7 for the Wallabies. Do you guys agree or disagree with that? Hulla, you obviously have a lot to say. What do you reckon?
Hey, man. Again, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I still think Hooper needs to be the 7. I think, again, with the rushing these players in, I think the Wallabies have a lot to work on, and I think rushing in a 7, you lose 3, your 6, 7, 8 are very important positions. I think let's just focus on the back line first, get some build up those combinations, and keep your forward pack, to what you think it should be. And Hooper's a great leader on the field, and I thought he had an outstanding season last year in the Wallabies. And I think perhaps if they transition that captaincy over to someone else, maybe James O'Connor, only to be the forward leader and really help educate and bring through someone like McWright for that handover and that takeover right when the Wallabies need it most, and that's going to be the 2023 World Cup.
Because I think that's the problem, obviously, that the All Blacks are running into. Well, not so much now because Sam Cane's injured, but is that they have to start that player because he is captain, and then they're limited at putting their form back row in there because everyone is arguing saying that Mick Wright is the form 7. So, James, do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, and we've talked about that on this podcast before, that if somebody is such an outstanding leader and captain, then you really need to kind of lock them into their position and then build around them. But if you can get the leadership and captaincy somewhere else other than Hooper, then you can pick on form, and that's a very healthy dynamic. And McWright offers a fair few things that Hooper doesn't. So if we're trying to potentially pick our Wallabies 15 with the most upside for the next World Cup, I think McWright is right in there.
Mm-hmm. I believe I've heard Dave Rennie is leaning away from all the hype. I think he said that Hooper, he's the captain, and we're going to stick with him, and then that's how it's going to go. So I guess moving forward, we'll just have to wait.
In the team 2023, if we're going to go on form and potential, what we're going to see from these up and coming young guys, I can't. That's just me personally. I think Hooper's really, and I mean the guy plays so hard. You got to take in consideration how many 100 tests or whatever it is, 10 years of just going hard, like at a hard spot too. You're not talking about a winger or a fullback here. No offense to wingers and fullbacks, but you're just not getting into that many collisions for 80 minutes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And leading your country and, doing all the media commitments. So, it'd be interesting to see. I think Fraser McWright definitely has had a great season, but at the moment, I mean, I'd still like to see. I really want the Wallabies to be the strongest that they can be in 2023. And I think taking that captaincy from Hooper and just letting him sort of become the mentor, which I think he's really great at, would help make Wright even more, and the Wallabies in the long run.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. But who cares? Because All Blacks going to win anyway, and Tonga's going to be in the final with them.
He's been drinking before the podcast again.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock over here, baby. Let's turn up Tuesdays.
Turn up Tuesdays. Oh my God. Okay, we'll leave it there before Hulla gets too inebriated, and then we can't talk about anything else. But great pod, boys. Loved it every time. We got a great couple of games coming up. I can't wait to see how the Super Rugby AU unfolds with these next wins. I'm very interested to see what happens in round 9 with these games. The Force Waratahs, I'm going to be watching that game because I want to, first time in the history of my life, back to Waratahs to see if they can get over. And Highlanders versus Blues, I'm very interested in seeing how that game goes, and obviously Chiefs versus Crusaders. So great weekend of footy. James, I hope that Randwick gets another 97 point win. Yeah, whoever you guys got.
Warringah, who'll be a very tough side. They'll be strong.
Home or away?
At our Warringah.
Ooh, that's tough.
Okay.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That'll be good fun. Okay. Who have brothers got Hulla? Oh, it doesn't matter because they're going to lose. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into the Bonus Point podcast. We will see you next week for a Super Rugby AU episode. And don't forget to tune into our Major League Rugby episode as well. That will be recording tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But, boys, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll chat next week, and you guys have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much.